A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. We've all heard it. The poster in the gym, the first slide of the pep talk, the caption under somebody's sunrise photo. It might be the most quoted line of Chinese philosophy on earth. And here's the strange part. That's not what Lao Tzu wrote. The line he did write isn't about starting at all. Because think about when we actually fail. It's 11 p.m. The project is at 90%. One module left. One chapter left. And that's exactly where we close the laptop. Not day one. Day one was easy. We have a folder somewhere full of things that made it to 90% and stopped. We could name 3 of them right now. 2,300 years ago, a short Chinese text described that exact moment, the quitting at the end moment, and then gave a working method for it. 3 moves, older than the Roman Empire. The last one hides inside the famous quote itself, in the 2 characters everybody translates wrong. But first, the line, the real one, in the room where it was written. The line comes from the Tao Te Ching, chapter 64 of 81, a text compiled in China somewhere between the 4th and 3rd centuries BCE. About 5,000 characters total. You could read the whole thing in an evening. Tradition says the author was Laozi, a keeper of the imperial archives who grew tired of watching his dynasty rot, quit his post, and rode west out of civilization on a water buffalo. That story is legend, not record. The version that reaches us was written down centuries later, but the text is real. It sits in museums, and chapter 64 is where our quote lives. Here's how the chapter actually moves. It starts quietly. What is at rest is easy to hold. What hasn't happened yet is easy to plan. What is brittle is easy to break. What is small is easy to scatter. So, act on a thing before it exists. Bring order before there's chaos. Then come the 3 images everyone remembers, and they're all about size. A tree so wide you can't wrap your arms around it grows from a sprout you could lose in your palm. A tower 9 stories high starts as one basket of dirt. And a journey of 1,000 li, a li is about 1/3 of a mile, begins beneath your feet. Beneath your feet. Not with a single step. Hold that. We'll come back for it. Because right here, the chapter turns. And this is the part that never made it onto the poster. He who forces fails. He who grasps loses. And then this, the actual thesis of the whole chapter, 1 line later. People, in handling their affairs, constantly ruin them when they are on the verge of success. On the verge of success, not at the beginning. Laozi looked at human beings and wrote down where we actually break, at the end, with the finish line in sight. And then he wrote the instruction, the sentence the entire chapter was built to deliver. Give as much careful attention to the end as to the beginning, and the task will not be ruined. That's the line. That's what the famous quote was cut away from. So what did he see? He saw that attention has a shape. At the start of anything, we're careful. We check twice. We're humble, because everything is unknown. But somewhere around 90%, a switch flips. The mind decides the thing is basically done, and quietly leaves. It's already at the celebration, already writing the announcement. The hands are still working, but nobody's supervising them anymore. It's like carrying a full cup of tea across a room. We never spill it in the middle of the room. We spill it at the table, in the last second when the arm relaxes, because the mind has already set the cup down. The tradition has a name for the countermove, Shen Zhong Ru Shi, 4 characters, and they translate almost word for word, careful at the end as at the beginning. Treat step 999 with the same attention you gave step 1. That's it. That's the whole teaching. Not a mood, a placement of attention. And this is where the famous quote snaps into focus. The Chinese is 足下, foot and beneath. The journey of 1,000 li begins beneath your feet. Not with a heroic first stride, with the patch of ground you're standing on. And here's the thing about that patch of ground. It's there the whole way. Mile 1, it's beneath your feet. Mile 500, beneath your feet. Mile 999, when the mind is sprinting ahead to the arrival, the actual journey is still happening in the same place it always was, beneath your feet. The line isn't a cheer for starting, it's telling you where the journey is. We read it backwards for a century. We thought it said, just begin. It says, there is no finish line to look at. There is only ever the ground under this step. This isn't a modern reinterpretation, by the way. It's the oldest reading we have. In the 3rd century CE, a scholar named Wang Bi wrote what's still the standard commentary on this text. He was a prodigy, brilliant, famously hard to be around, dead of illness at 23, and on this chapter he wrote, "Worry about the dangers of the end the way you worry about the disasters of the beginning, and nothing fails." Same reading 1800 years ago. And modern research on goal striving points the same direction. As people near completion, monitoring relaxes and error rates climb. One body of studies, honestly sized, Laozi got there without a lab. We don't fail at mile 1, we fail at mile 999. So if the real line is beneath your feet, where did a single step come from? That has an exact answer, a name and a year. So where did a single step come from? A translator gave it to us, and we know exactly which one. The year is 1891. A Scottish scholar named James Legge is producing the Sacred Books of China, one of the first major English renderings of the Tao Te Ching. When he reaches chapter 64, he writes, "A journey of 1,000 li began with a single step." One small substitution, the ground beneath the feet becomes a stride forward, and the meaning tilts. A line about where the journey lives becomes a line about getting going. A pocket translation series repeated it in 1905, and the tilt hardened into the version we all know. By the 1930s, more careful translators were already walking it back. Began with what was under the feet. Too late, the poster version had escaped. The 20th century ran with it, corporate leadership guides, gym walls, program names, film titles. And somewhere along the way, the quote anthologies started crediting it to Confucius, a man who never wrote it. It appears nowhere in the Analects. Wrong author, wrong meaning, on a million mugs. Here's what makes this one different from the usual fake quote story, though. The quote is real. Laozi wrote that line. What's fake is the frame, the pep talk it got wrapped in after the warning around it was cut away. And we know the warning was there from the start because we've dug the text out of the ground. In 1973, silk manuscripts of the Tao Te Ching were excavated from a tomb at Mawangdui, copied in 168 BCE. In 1993, bamboo strips carrying an early form of chapter 64 surfaced at Guodian from around 300 BCE. Older than the Roman Empire, sitting in museum cases in Hunan and Hubei. The verge-of-success warning wasn't a later addition somebody snuck in. It's the oldest layer we can touch. Which leaves one question. If the chapter is a warning, what did the tradition say to actually do about it? The oldest complete commentary we have on this text is attributed to a Han-era hermit teacher called Heshang Gong. When he reached chapter 64, he gave it a title, Guarding the Subtle. Not dream big, not just start. Guarding the subtle, watching the small things all the way through. Out of this chapter, the tradition kept a working method. The version that reaches us is simplified. It's 3 moves, and honestly, they're almost embarrassingly plain. That's rather the point. The first move, catch it small. The chapter says to act on a thing before it exists, so the practice is to name today's small problem today. The odd noise in the plan, the email we're avoiding. What is brittle is easy to break. What is small is easy to scatter, but only while it's still small. The second move, the 90% reset. When a thing is nearly done, that's the signal, not to relax, but to deliberately start over on care. Check it the way we checked it on day 1. Same doubt, same patience. Careful at the end as at the beginning. The tradition has carried this move for 2,000 years. Most of us have never once done it on purpose. The third move is the quote itself, ground underfoot. Whenever the mind sprints ahead to the finish line, the celebration, the announcement, the relief, bring it back to the patch of ground it's actually standing on. This step, this sentence, this tile. 住下, the journey never moved, only the attention did. That's the whole method, and the text's promise is narrow and honest. Give the end the attention you gave the beginning, and the task is not ruined. It doesn't say the task becomes easy. It doesn't say we become new people. It says the cup makes it to the table. So, tonight, probably around 11 p.m., some of us will open that folder again, the thing at 90%. And the mind will do what minds have done for 2,300 years. It will leave early for the finish line. When it does, the old line will be waiting, meaning what it always meant. The journey doesn't begin with a single step. It's beneath your feet. It always was.